What is up, my YouTube family? Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, then it's just welcome to my channel and now welcome back. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button because you will not be disappointed. I just did a bunch of talking and I felt like nobody really will care about any of it. Some of y'all be wanting to know personal stories and all of that. So if you care, I'm just gonna put it at the end of the video, at the very end past the bloopers, and you can just stay and watch that. Or maybe I'll put it right before the bloopers. Today we're talking about the case of Arlis Perry. Without any further delays, let's get into the details. Arlis Perry is born February 22nd of 1955, and she is born in Linton, North Dakota, the youngest of 3 children. Her parents, Marvin and Jean, are very devout Christians who are very involved in the church, as are their children. And when Arlis is about 8 years old, they relocate to Bismarck, North Dakota, where they found a church, the Bismarck Community Church, and they also own and operate a car dealership. Now, for the most part, Arlis and her siblings, they are required to spend a lot of time in church, but they do make time for extracurriculars. She is a cheerleader by high school, so the reins weren't too tight on the children. In high school, she meets a young man by the name of Bruce Perry, and the two form a very strong liking for one another. They very quickly blossom into high school sweethearts that are completely enamored with one another. Bruce also has or comes from a big family. He's the second born of 4 children. His mother is a stay-at-home mom and his father works as a dentist. Bruce is also an athlete. He runs track and he's one of the best at the school. He sets and breaks several records. He has dreams of attending Stanford after graduation. He wants to major in human biology and enter into the medical field. Now in 1973, he graduates high school and makes the 1,500-mile move, leaving Arlis behind in North Dakota. And she too decides after high school to further her education, but instead of moving away from home, she enrolls into the Bismarck Community College. She teaches Sunday school at her family's church, where she's very involved in the youth program. And Bruce's father gives her a job working as a secretary at his dental office. So mama is busy, okay? She has a lot going on. And whenever she is not studying or working, she is spreading the word of her church, working as a missionary, and participating or orchestrating church events. Now, although the distance between her and Bruce is not ideal, especially in the days of letters and landlines, they make it work. And after Bruce's freshman year, he returns home for the summer and asks Arlis to be his wife. To those around them, it was an obvious next step. And we are talking about the late 1900s, baby, where it was very common to marry young. The both of them are 19. They married August 17th of 1974, wasting absolutely no time. And their ceremony takes place at Arlis's family's church, surrounded by all of their family and friends. Afterward, they spend their honeymoon at a cabin owned by Bruce's family. And in the fall, when it's time to go back to school, Bruce returns to Stanford University, but he returns with his brand new wife, Arlis, by his side. She had made the decision to switch schools to be close to her husband. The two of them reside in a residence hall there that is specifically for families. Very quickly, Arlis realizes that California is a lot different than North Dakota, okay? A lot different. She is used to this very small town, conservative type vibe, and has now been thrust into the tech-savvy liberal California on the heels of the hippie era. And in her eyes, there's just a lot going on that she has never witnessed before. On top of this, her brand new husband is completely immersed in his schoolwork. Bruce is also working to support his wife and himself, and so they're not spending as much time together as she had anticipated. So she spends a lot of her alone time nesting, settling in, familiarizing herself with the campus, sharpening up her homemaking skills. She often goes for a walk or a jog, and it is not long before she secures herself a job working as a receptionist at a nearby law firm. But even with all of this, she still finds herself having a lot more downtime than she liked. In letters and phone calls back to her friends and family back in Bismarck, she often expresses how incredibly lonely she is. When she happens across the Stanford Memorial Church, she is enamored, to say the least. She has never in her life seen a place as grand and as beautiful as this, and I'll put pictures because it is in fact very gorgeous. Her discovery of this church could not have come at a better time. It gives her something new and exciting to look forward to. She spends a lot of time at the church, sometimes just in all of its beauty and walking around taking in all of the things. Once she starts spending her time at this church, her family and friends back home begin to see a shift in the updates that they receive from her. Life in California isn't so bad after all. The weather is nice. She's found this great church, and naturally things seem to be falling into place. So it seems as if she just needed to give it a bit more time. The night of October 12th, 1974, the Stanford campus is relatively crowded because they are up against their rivals UCLA. Their football team has been receiving a lot of attention lately. It's just a big night. A lot of students from both schools are excited. There are a lot of students from both schools on the Stanford campus. And aside from the game, there are also other things going on, like after parties, pre-games. It's a lot going on, okay? But Arlis and Bruce don't have plans to attend any of them. Bruce plans to spend the night immersed in his books, studying, and Arlis is gonna go take a walk because there's really nothing else for her to do. As I previously mentioned, taking walks or sometimes a nice jog has been something that she does regularly, so it's not out of the norm for her to take a walk even in the evening time. But with everything going on campus, Bruce does not feel comfortable allowing his wife to go out walking or jogging by herself this evening. So he decides that he's going to put the books down, go with her, and keep her company. It will be a great opportunity for them to get some more time in together. So he joins her on her walk, but some point during the walk, the two of them disagree. It's about something regarding their car, and it very quickly escalates into an argument. Now, Arlis expresses the need for space to cool off, so she tells Bruce that she is going to go into the church to do so. It always brought her a lot of peace before, and they're very near it now. And Bruce tells her, that's fine. He felt comfortable with her going into the church. So he just heads back to their apartment, which is about a half a mile from the church. Arlis enters the church at exactly 11:50 p.m., 10 minutes before it is due to close. And she passes two other worshipers that are leaving as she is entering. But they notice that she goes down to the front of the church toward the left side and kneels down to pray. As the two other worshipers are walking out, another young man passes them on his way inside. By their account, he is certainly in his young 20s, no older than 25 for sure. He has a medium build, medium blonde hair, and is wearing a short sleeved blue shirt. Nothing seemed odd about Arlis or the young man coming into the church. The only thing that really catches their attention about Arlis and this young man are the fact that they're showing up to the church so close to it being closed down for the night. At 12:10 a.m., Stephen Crawford, the church's security guard working that night, goes to the church. He looks around, doesn't see anyone. He yells into the church that he's about to shut it down. It's about to be locked, so if you're in here, you need to get out. Nobody responds. He turns off the lights, locks the doors to the church, and then proceeds to make his rounds around the campus. Now, about 10 minutes after that, 20 minutes after the church is closed for the night, Bruce is a little bit concerned when his wife has not returned home. He goes back down to the church and finds that it has been locked up for the night. He walks around the campus a little bit in the surrounding areas. There is no sign of his wife anywhere, and the people that he sees, they claim that they have not seen her. At this point, he decides to double check her route home, hoping that he runs into her along the way. When he doesn't, he is hopeful that he returns home and finds that she has made her way back to the apartment. But when he gets back there, she is not. At this point, he figures maybe Arlis changed her mind and went to participate in some of the things. Like, it's a lot going on. It's a lot of campus parties. Parties aren't really her thing, but maybe she decided to attend something, or maybe something caught her eye. Maybe she has decided to do some exploring and she'll be home soon. At around 2 a.m., Stephen Crawford does his second round at the church, which is just to make sure nobody has broken in. And his walkthroughs require him to enter the church and do a full walkthrough. He is to also, again, make sure that all of the church's doors are closed and properly locked. And then he does another round on the campus immediately afterward. Now, according to him, he performed his job that night without cutting any corners. He did everything that was required and nothing was awry. And at 3 a.m., when Arlis is still not home, Bruce decides that it is time to now involve the police. While reporting to the dispatcher that his wife has not returned home, Bruce tells her that he believes that she had fallen asleep inside of the church and has now been locked in and he is very adamant that his wife must still be inside the church. Officers go out, they check the premises, they walk around tapping on the doors, listening for something inside. They don't hear anything inside. Nobody responds to them knocking. So they leave and report that it is unlikely that someone is trapped inside of the church. At 5:45 a.m., the security guard is now at the end of his shift and he goes back to the church to open it for the day. It is then that he notices one of the side doors has been opened. He enters to check and see if it had been vandalized at all. He does not see any damage anywhere. He proceeds to walk around because there must be some reason for this door to have been open. He checks for obvious signs of theft and nothing appears to have been stolen. And when he reaches the front of the church, he discovers the remains of 19-year-old Arlis Perry exactly where she had been last seen kneeling and praying. He immediately contacts the police and his supervisor. Arlis is laying on her back. She is unclothed from the waist down and her pants are draped across the lower half of her body. Her top had been ripped open and one of the 24-inch white candles from the altar had been placed between her breasts and her arms are crossed over her chest holding the candle in place. Her neck is broken and there is an ice pick protruding from the left side of her head, right behind her ear. The handle of it is broken and missing. Another one of the 24-inch long candles from the altar has been lodged inside of her. While investigating the crime scene, the detectives noticed that the door that was open to the church was forced open, but the force had come from the inside of the church, heavily implying that whomever had done this to her had been locked inside with her and was forced to force their way out. There is also a kneeling pillow beside her with semen on it. It is just a very horrific crime scene. There are a couple officers given the horrible task of going out to visit Bruce and breaking the bad news to him. When they arrive, Bruce opens the door covered in blood. According to him, he suffers terrible nosebleeds when he is stressed, and he had been stressed because his wife had not come home. But with this, instead of breaking the news to him, they decided to bring him down to the station to ask him a couple of questions. And their interview of him lasts for 2 hours. During the conversation, they present multiple scenarios where Arlis could have made him upset enough to have done this to her. They refer to this as a crime of passion that he committed against his wife, and he denies having anything to do with it. But they do not believe him. They instead collect the blood from his shirt to test it to see if it matches his blood type or if it matches Arlis's, and they also prepared a polygraph test to see if he is lying. At no point does he show any type of resistance or hesitance to cooperate with them at all, but they do not believe that Bruce has not done this to his wife until he passes that polygraph test and the blood on his shirt does not match her blood type but matches his own. They also retrieve a palm print from one of the candles found on her, and this palm print does not match Bruce's palm print either, so he is cleared as a suspect. At this point, investigators believe that this was a random attack of convenience committed by some sexual deviant. So they begin to look up the offenders in the local area, and with over 100 people, they don't find a match to this palm print, which they believe had to have come from our attacker. They also zero in on the security guard who had made the discovery. It is determined that her time of death was about midnight. So if he had done his walkthrough at midnight or 10 minutes after and had done another at 2 a.m., why wouldn't he have made the discovery before 6 a.m. or 5:45? Especially with him insisting that he did not cut any corners, that he completely performed his job. They administer a polygraph test, which he passes. They test his palm against the one found on the candle, and it is not a match. And with that, he is then cleared as a suspect. The only other person that would have had access to the church outside of the hours is the Stanford Chapel dean. He too passes the polygraph test, and his fingerprint or palm print comes back as a mismatch for the one found as well. And with that, they clear him. Arlis's family is then given the tragic news, and they begin to prepare for her homegoing services that would take place in her hometown where all of her loved ones are. A memorial service for Arlis is held on the Stanford campus at the actual church where she had been discovered, which was kind of bittersweet because it's like, obviously, on one hand, this is where she was discovered, and Bruce and his family are sitting literally feet away from where she had been discovered. But at the same time, this was like one of her favorite places, like one of the places that she considered the most beautiful. So it kind of felt right to have her memorial there. Many other students and staff members of the school show up to show support. And sadly, the only people in attendance that really knew her personally was Bruce and his family members that had traveled there to support him. There are a couple of her coworkers from the law firm that attend as well, but they really didn't know her. She'd only been working there about 2 weeks, but still they felt that it was right to show up and show support. Now, one of these coworkers sees Bruce at the memorial for the first time, but thought she had seen Bruce for the first time a couple days before at the law firm. According to this co-worker, a young man who she originally thought was Bruce had paid Arlis a visit at work on that Friday, which was October 11th, one day before her death. The two of them had had a very serious looking conversation, one that appeared to have upset Arlis, and it only lasted about 15 minutes before she returned to her desk, visibly upset. The coworker did not feel that it was appropriate to ask her anything about what they had discussed because she was assuming that she had had a little tiff with her man. She thought this was her husband. Realizing that this person was not her husband, she decides to let police know about this conversation, this weird exchange that had taken place, but she has no idea who the man could have been if not Bruce. Her description of him is that he is a young man, obviously in his very early 20s, about an average length of blonde hair, about 5'10", and an athletic build, which is just about the exact same description given of the person that the two worshipers had seen entering the church as they had left that night. Astonishingly though, despite this being the second mention of a man fitting the same description that has had talks or connection with Arlis, police don't really zero in on him and focus on identifying who this person is and trying to find him. I don't know if they felt like that was just too broad of a description in the mid-70s in California. Honestly, when you think about it, they should have tried. Someone else comes forward with a bit of information stating that they had passed by the church between 12:15 and 12:30 and had heard a strange noise coming from inside. But when they stopped walking to listen, the noise stopped. So at that point, girl, I'm not trying to give you no five. So you get up here and you interrupt the thing. And with that, they decide to keep on walking because maybe they hadn't actually heard anything. Arlis's remains are returned home to her family in Bismarck, and her homegoing service takes place at the same church that she had married Bruce just 2 months prior. Bruce also travels home to attend her funeral and to be surrounded by people who love and support him and knew them both. The horrific details of what happened to her have not been made public, nor have they been shared with her family members at this point. All they know is that some unknown person had taken her life. Now, they do reveal that 2 objects of hers have been taken from the crime scene, but they don't say what they are, only that they believe that the person took them as trophies. Less than 2 weeks after her funeral in her hometown, on Halloween, a temporary grave marker is stolen from Arlis's plot. No other grave markers are touched, stolen, no other plots disturbed, only Arlis's. And there's quite a bit of distance between North Dakota and California. So detectives are not sure if this was the actual killer or if this was somebody who just wanted a sick, twisted piece of memorabilia. Years go by without detectives making any progress. And in 1979, 5 years into their investigation, the infamous son of Sam, aka David Berkowitz, sends a book about witchcraft to the investigative team in North Dakota with a handwritten note that reads, Arlis Perry, hunted, stalked, and slain, followed to California, Stanford University. Now, if you are unfamiliar with him, he essentially went on a spree of his own in New York between 1976 and 1977, was eventually arrested, and he admitted to his crimes, but said that his neighbor's dog told him to commit them. Yes, the neighbor's dog gave him orders to go on a killing spree. He is one of those that I haven't done because I feel like they have just talked about so much, just like the Ted Bundys of the world, girl. I just feel like everybody has talked about the son of Sam. And at the same time that he sent the letters to the investigative team in North Dakota, this is what he was doing in jail, girl. He was sending letters all over the country to police everywhere about all different crimes, and of course enjoying all of the attention that he was getting from it. He also made these claims of him and others like him, like Charles Manson, Otis Toole, Ted Bundy, were all part of this nationwide cult, this network of serial killers, and they are responsible for what happened to Arlis. Now, there are people who believed him to be telling the truth. There are a lot of people who did not believe him. They thought that he was making all of this up for attention and monetary gain, because at the time killers could profit off of their stories. The son of Sam law was actually passed because of him, forbidding them from making money like this. Now, whether or not David's claims are valid is investigated. FBI investigators, profilers, psychologists, and forensic anthropologists have all sat down with him and have spoken with him in detail about the crime and about his claims of this huge network, and have all found his claims to be bogus, nothing more than a fantasy that he has constructed himself in that sick, twisted little or big head of his. Not to mention his peers that he was name dropping were like, ain't got nothing to do with that. Now, in 1987, fast forward 13 years after what happened to Arlis Perry, an author publishes a book called The Ultimate Evil, presenting his theory about what had happened that night. Now, there was a rumor being started by Bruce Perry's parents that Arlis had made several attempts to reach out to a satanic cult near Bismarck in the year before she had joined Bruce in Stanford, and that these cultists had tracked her down and performed this ritual on her. The author also claims that the person that had went to visit Arlis that day that she had that uncomfortable conversation with was a member of that cult. Now, by now, it's 13 years later, the details of what happened to her have been made public. So there are theories flying left and right. To be fair, there are ritualistic aspects of how she was left, but all in all, his theory felt a bit far-fetched and unlikely to most people. But there is also something else to note. There really was a rumor about her reaching out to a satanic cult before she left in Bismarck, because she actually had. Her parents explained that as missionaries, it is their duty and part of their job to go out and try to spread the word where it is not. They feel that it is their duty to convert non-believers and essentially save their souls. And there was a cult near Bismarck called the Process Church of Final Judgment that was heavy into Satanism. And they also would perform rituals. Arlis had gone down there to try to save the people. She had reached out to them to try to, convert them, turn their lives around. But investigators don't believe that this had anything to do with what happened to her. The FBI had a profile of their assailant, and they believed that they were spot on with it. They said that he had to be a male between the ages of 17 and 22, was likely a loner, possibly had a military background, of course, depending on his age, and they are not willing to stray from the prototype. There is a point in which Arlis Perry is linked to two other women who met unfortunate ends at Stanford University, but those two have the same MO, and it was completely different from what had happened to her. So eventually they abandoned that, and they even speak with little old Ted Bundy about it. He was active in California between 73 and 74, so that was kind of in his neighborhood. He denies that this was his work, and he also gives them an alibi for that night that checks out. He also denies being a part of David Berkowitz's alleged group project, if you will, of serial killers. Now, June of 2016, 42 years after this horrible night in October, 65-year-old Brian McCracken comes forward claiming that he was at the church that night. He said that he had been strolling past the church, minding his business, when he heard some flute music coming from the inside at around midnight, and so he had gone up to the door to see where the music was coming from. Inside, he noticed a white male wearing a light-colored afro. He recognizes this person as a member of the marching band, and he also said that as he witnesses this guy playing the flute, he saw a woman laying on the altar surrounded by candles. Oh, he is sure was Arlis Perry, but he couldn't see that anything sinister was going on. Strange maybe, but it didn't look like she was hurt, and so he just decided to go on about his night. He does know the name of the young man that was playing the flute, so detectives go out and speak with this man, and he mentions wearing a light colored afro wig for whatever reason that night and playing the flute at the church, confirming Brian's account of what he had seen because they didn't tell him these details. But after interviewing with him for a couple of hours, detectives determined that he is not a person of interest at all. Later this same year, 2016, now that DNA technology has progressed quite a bit, a DNA profile is made using the semen sample that was found on the pillow and on Arlis's jeans. Police began conducting interviews again, this time taking DNA samples from everybody that they spoke with, but still no luck. They are able to narrow down the list of suspects by excluding people, but they still don't find their guy. With 2018, 2 years later, they finally catch a break in the case when they finally get a hit as a match for the DNA sample. And it is none other than the church's security guard that night, Stephen Crawford. Stephen is now 72 years old. He is a veteran of the U.S. Air Force, and he had begun working at Stanford University's Department of Public Safety in 1971. But prior to that, he was a police officer. It was not his choice to leave the force at all. A new chief of police had stepped in and decided to downsize the force by 75%. He was one of them who was offered a security guard job in exchange for their badge. And Stephen was not at all happy about this. He hated their job as a security guard. He felt like it was a slap in the face, and he ended up quitting the job 2 years after Arlis's death, but not before doing a little bit of scamming. Shortly after that, he was found with a false diploma that he had made using a blank one from the university. During that investigation, they had also found out that homie had sold over 300 things from students and from the university during his time working there. And with that, he is sentenced to a 6-month suspended sentence and 2 years of probation. Afterward, he had relocated to San Jose, California, and had lived a pretty uneventful, normal life. That is until that DNA match had popped up in the system. On June 20th of 2018, investigators arrived at his apartment. They announced their presence, and he yells out for them to give him a couple of minutes to get dressed. But he does not come to the door after them couple of minutes. So they reach out to the landlord to get the key to his unit, and once they enter, they find Stephen sitting on his bed, armed. They immediately back down, fearing that he was ready to harm one of them, but instead he fatally turns it on himself, and when they hear the shots, they go back in. His apartment is searched, and they find a copy of Mari Terry's book, The Ultimate Evil, that has spoke about Arlis Perry's unsolved crime, along with a handwritten self-deletion note that he had written 2 years prior in 2016 when investigators were interviewing people and collecting DNA samples. Now, there is no mention of her in the letter, but it is pretty evident to them that he was afraid that they will find him in San Jose, come down there and collect his DNA and connect him to the crime. But when they don't, he had just decided to tuck the letter away and continue on with life. But now that they were tapping at his door, I guess he figured it was time. Unfortunately, Arlis's dad had passed away just 3 months before this, so he died not knowing what ever happened to his daughter. Arlis's mother is 88 at the time, and she does receive some answers, some closure. At least she knows who did it. And as for Bruce, he had gone on to graduate with an MD and a doctorate from Northwestern University, and he went on to become an internationally recognized children's mental health expert. I'm not sure if he still practicing today, but he specialized in working with children that have suffered through very serious trauma, children who were in like school pew-pews and things of that nature. He has also appeared on television to share his research and his techniques. He's a senior member of the Canadian and Australian Childhood Institutes. Bruce focuses on the long-term repercussions of trauma and how our experiences as children affect us as we grow older. He is also an author, having written 3 books, one of which he wrote with Oprah Winfrey. As for his personal life, he did remarry and understandably wanted to put the details of all of this and his first marriage behind him. He doesn't speak publicly about Arlis or what happened, which is understandable. And that is pretty much it. That is what happened. Unfortunately, Stephen Crawford got to live out his entire life after taking hers. But I also want to know your thoughts down below. Let me know. Like the video if you have not. Share the video. Subscribe if you have not. As always, I appreciate you so much for spending your time with me. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Peace. Y'all, I gotta tell y'all about my life lately. It's been all over the place, okay? Y'all, I have been back in my reading era, okay? My book girl era. I haven't been a consistent reader for a while. Let me tell you something. Y'all remember, if you were following me, I had gotten to this girl. Child, Blue just charged Bella. Now they look like they're challenging each other to a duel. I got into this girl. This is as far as I got. A little over halfway. I can't do it no more. I can't read another word. It's so boring. If you don't know about it, it's about this girl who was going to Paris to stay with her brother. He's already told her she can come. But when she arrives there, he is missing from the apartment, and it's clear that something has happened and that the people that live in the apartment building know something. I read that far. I still don't know a damn thing, okay? And I only got that far because I wanted to know. Like, I did want to know what happened to the brother, but at this point, I don't care what happens to the brother, okay? If you know what happened to the brother, let me know. I can't read another word of that. And that was a good year and a half ago that I tried to finish that book. I did read Cabin at the End of the World because I liked the movie that came out. What was the movie called? What was the movie? A knock at a cabin, or knock at the cabin at the end of the world? I don't know. It was called something, and I tried to use that as like a palate cleanser, and then I tried to get back into the Paris apartment, and I just can't do it. This is the only book that's on my DNF, okay? Did not finish. And honestly, the whole time I thought it was me because I have the attention span of a fruit fly, but since y'all have seen me, which has been about 2 weeks now, a week and a half, I started reading The Black Farm by Elias Witherow. I really liked it. It was really different, and I read that in like 2 days. My plan was to get this video filmed and uploaded, okay? But I just had to know, with the title Return to the Black Farm, what happened and who returned and why. So then I ended up reading that sequel, and then somebody suggested to me Frida McFadden books. I have never read a Frida McFadden book. I read Never Lie. I finished Never Lie in a day. I ate that book up, okay? One thing about me, and one reason why I don't like or typically enjoy like watching TV, is that I'm always trying to figure out what's going to happen. Like, I'm in my mind, the gears are always going. I'm always trying to work out the plot. I don't know, it's this weird thing that I have where I feel like everything is so predictable nowadays, and I'm like, I already know what's going to happen. Like, I don't know, it's the little piece of arrogance in my wiring like that. So I hate when something is predictable, and I'm reading the book and it's good, but the whole time I'm like, I already know how this is gonna end. Like, I just know this is where she's going with it because she's dropping all these little hints. And y'all, the ending, I ain't see coming, okay? I didn't see it at all. That was nowhere on my bingo card. So I really appreciated that about her. And I've just started a coworker. One of you suggested off of Instagram. I can't really say I'm feeling the coworker like that. I'm gonna finish it for sure. It's not that it's not, you know, finishable like the Paris apartment, but I definitely could have gone without the coworker. At least this is how I'm feeling with where I am in the story, which is a little bit over halfway. What else? Somebody suggested to me on Instagram, Tender is the Flesh. I read the synopsis on that, and baby, I think I might push her up the list, okay? My goal was only to read 2 books for the month. It was really to read 1. My friend was like, girl, I challenge you to read 2. I'm like, all right, girl, I will. And it's looking like it's going to be a lot more than that. If you have any really good book recommendations, please let me know down below. I enjoy suspense, thrillers. My favorite type of book, just like my favorite type of like movie or whatever, is a psychological thriller. That is mama's taste, okay? That's my jam. So that's my preference. But with books, I also like romance. So if you got a good romantic novel, something real cute, or a nice little thriller, let me know. In other news, y'all, my hand looks so much better on the screen. If you can see here, like, it looks, honestly, I was gonna film this video a couple days ago. My hand was swollen. It looked so bad. The blisters were so disgusting that I was not willing to get on camera like that, because it's like, I gotta hold my mirror, and now I see that you really don't even see the bulk of my hand. So I could have filmed what else is going on while I feel like chatting. I'm just talking away. Hey girl, y'all's girl If you follow me on Instagram, you already know what's up with Bella. So y'all, the hand. I volunteer at a community garden where I've learned so much about gardening and is a huge reason why I can do what I'm doing in my backyard, okay? Ran into an ant pile, didn't know anything about ant pile, girl, and how they can bite. I thought ants were so nice. They attacked my hand. It was so swollen, it was so disgusting, so nasty. I would rather take bee stings, wasps, really, Bella? Wasp stings, what else can sting? Whatever else, okay? Ants do not play. Mosquito bites. At times, I literally wanted to take my entire hand off. As if I'm not going through enough already. I decide, you know, well, let me just switch up their produce because I make their dog food. I rotate a lot of their vegetables, proteins to make sure they're getting all the essential nutrients that their little bodies need. And so I put a beet into the mix and it turned the food pink. I don't know if it was the look of it or what. Bella was not fooling with it. And Bella has this thing where if I give her something, like I've made them catnip tea. And if you follow me on Instagram, you already know all of this. But anyway, for the people that don't, Blue is always down to try whatever I make. So he sips the tea. Bella has this thing where if I give her something she's unsure about, she runs up the stairs and she stands down looking at me like I'm trying to kill her. She did that with the tea. She does the same with the plate of like food with the beets in it. She wants no part unless I feed it to her off of a plate and a spoon. So I had to go get a paper plate, a little plastic spoon, and then she sat there and allowed me to feed it to her. And this is, I found this out after she went on a food shock for 24 hours, and I'm like, girl, I don't want you to die. So yeah, she ate like that, cleaned the plate. So I'm thinking surely at the next meal she'll see like this was good. I like that. But that doesn't happen. She refuses to eat dinner. She gets to where she is 24 hours now since she ate, and I'm trying to keep her alive because that's what you do as a pet parent. And she only eats it when I feed it to her off of the paper plate and the spoon. Meanwhile, Blue has been tearing it up, demolishing it as if anybody else wants it. And Bella demolishes it off the spoon. It's the craziest thing. The girl is insane, and I'm sick of it. Here she comes. And one more thing. So yeah, y'all, I was in the grocery store. Men are so creepy. I was in a grocery store the other day, right? I made the grave mistake of looking this man in the eye and saying, excuse me, like I got home training and manners. I saw when I said excuse me and made that eye contact, I saw something in his face and I said, oh no, oh no, no, no. That was I knew something was up at that point. But I continue on with my basket. Go down to an aisle. Here he comes down the aisle. I said, maybe I'm tripping. Maybe he's not following me. Like maybe he needs something off this aisle. I go back where he had just come from and here he comes again. But he's not saying anything. He's just looking. So I'm like, I'm afraid. And at the same time, like I'm trying not to be rude. Like I'm trying not to make my potential kidnapper feel uncomfortable and let it be so obvious that I'm running from him. So then I'm like, okay, I only have one more thing to get, which was like the frozen peas and carrots to go in the dog's food. I get to the frozen section aisle. I'm like in the second freezer, facing the freezers, got the door open, hands on the peas. I see something come in my peripheral. I look. It's him. I dropped the peas. The way this man activated my flight response, like instantly, my hand said, no, abort mission, baby, get out of there. So I dropped the peas, close the refrigerator, and go walking aimlessly through the store while I'm trying to figure it out because it was the last thing I needed off the list and I didn't abandon it. At this point, I don't care about making him comfortable, uncomfortable, baby, because you obviously don't care nothing about my comfort. You're literally stalking me to the grocery store, staring at me like a lurch. It was the creepiest thing ever. I don't know what he was up to, but y'all, I had to get out of there. Something about that man wasn't right. And I wasn't trying to stick around to see what was wrong. I got a lot to say. I probably should just make a different video. I just feel like nobody's gonna care about nothing I just talked about. What you want, Piggy? I promise you waits till I look the craziest in my makeup. That's why I'm glad I got a house, because she used to have me downstairs with the neighbors looking like this. And they're right near the church. So she tells Arlis that she's Arlis. Yeah. Now, according to him, he put... They don't hear anybody responding. Arlis's family, or her parents... Okay, no. Arlis's family, they received the tragic news and began to prepare. Many other students and staff members show up to show. Now show up to show, baby. I feel like the brush made me look like a cherub. Many other students and staff members show up to... I can't say show up to show support. Y'all know I'm a mother first, and just relax, pig. Just relax. Don't be a groupie. Keep it moving. Girl, stop. So you do too much. You get up here and you just break the rules. Did you have a good day? Heavy into Satanism. Is it Satanism? For a while, she is linked to other women at Sanford who had Sanford, not Sanford and Son.